Our featured guest tonight came into most of our lives with his role of the little boy Elliot in one of the most iconic films of all time, Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. And he's only added to his incredible legacy with stellar roles in The Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, and Dr. Sleep, with his incredible collaboration with writer and director Mike Flanagan. Here to chat about his life and career is Henry Thomas himself. Henry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Henry, there's so much I want to talk to you about, but I wonder if we could start off with just a little biography. You came into the spotlight early in life, as we all know, but what was life like before E.T., before Raggedy Man?
Well, I grew up in Texas, sort of south central Texas, not far from San Antonio. And my parents were kind of, hobby farmers on the weekends. And I just kind of fell into the arts in a very strange way through piano lessons and regional theater. And then I landed a part in a film called Raggedy Man in 1981, we filmed it in 1980. And that sort of set the path for me to go to Universal and meet Spielberg and all of that stuff that led to where I am now.
And I didn't know this actually until I started doing research, but that is correct. Your first film wasn't E.T., but Raggedy Man with Sissy Spacek. I didn't have any idea. How did that first role itself come about?
Well, that happened through a random audition that happened in San Antonio, Texas. They advertised, the casting agents advertised on the news and the radio that they were holding an open call audition at a Holiday Inn in downtown San Antonio. And I said, "Oh, Mom, Dad, I've got to go to that. I've got to go." And they said, "Well, okay, we'll take you. But don't get your hopes up because there's a lot of kids." So I went and the audition process felt like a long time, but I think, for a kid, time is kind of distended, but I think it probably took about 2.5 or 3 weeks. And I ended up getting the part. And that film shot in Texas, not far from where I grew up.
What was the first moment that started the journey of you getting cast in E.T.? I mean, did you have an agent call you or your parents? Did you all see an ad in the paper? Was it a news thing like you said? I mean, what were the events that led up to your audition for that role?
Well, I didn't have an agent. No agent would represent me because I lived in Texas. And they said, "You have to move to LA if you're serious about this because we don't want to deal with, an out-of-state client." And my parents didn't want to take that step. I mean, they had a simple life and they liked it that way. But basically, Sissy Spacek and her husband, Jack Fisk, who was the director of Raggedy Man, they kind of acted as our guide into the business because we didn't know anything. And, Jack was editing Raggedy Man across the hall from Spielberg while he was working on the initial, rough of Poltergeist, I think it was at the time. And he had heard through the grapevine that Steven was looking for a kid for this upcoming film. And, he tossed my hat in the ring, put a clip together, and Universal was kind of behind the idea. So when I was doing ADR for Raggedy Man in 1981, I had an audition with Spielberg for E.T.
And your audition tape, if I recall, is in itself kind of iconic and probably one of the more famous audition tapes in Hollywood history. Where did that wellspring of passion and emotion that you brought to that audition come from? I mean, when you watch that tape, I mean, it's solid. I mean, it's very real. Like you were Elliot already.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know. I guess I always had that that kind of emotional depth as a kid. I don't know what it was from. Maybe it was from being alone in the middle of nowhere in Texas and pretending to be dead so that the buzzards would land near me and I could look at them, like that kind of thing. Maybe that's where it all comes from. I'm not sure.
Now, was that ad-libbed?
Yeah, that was an improv that you see on the YouTube audition. It's basically the tail end of the audition process, because they had given me a page of dialogue to read in this kind of mock scene that wasn't in ET at all, but it was just kind of this cobbled together scene so they could test the kids' range, I suppose. And anyway, I did a horrible reading, I felt. And so when you see me the first time I'm on camera in the audition, that's right after I've given this horrible reading, in my opinion. So I have this kind of downcast look on my face in the first place. And I had thought, well, I lost this part. I didn't read it very well. So I think that also helped spur on some of the emotional outpouring that happens in the latter half of the improv. When you find out that you got the job, is that like a moment that's permanently seared into your memory? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because that never happens. Even if they know you have the job, they don't say that, because a lot of things can go wrong legally between then and production. So it's not always wise to say that, because then you have a screaming actor at the end of the day going, but they told me I had the part. Were your parents ever concerned about you taking on such a big role at such a young age? Yeah, my mom and my dad was less concerned. My dad kind of viewed it as, it was kind of like we were the Beverly Hillbillies or something. And we had accidentally stumbled upon this black gold. But my mom was kind of wary of the whole thing. My dad was ready to quit his job and move to California. He was like, yeah, that's great. We're cashing in on him. Yeah. And my mom was like, no, you're not. You're going to work your job and you're going to keep it. And this could all disappear tomorrow. And she was right. So. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of people would know this, Harrison Ford, he was originally in, but got cut. So Melissa Matheson was the screenwriter of E.T., and she and Harrison Ford lived together, and had been together for years. And Steven was constantly trying to convince Harrison to do a bit part in the film, and Harrison kept refusing. And finally he said, okay, well, I'll do this part of the principal in the office when Elliot gets taken into the office after releasing all the frogs. He has in the script, he had this conversation with the principal, and the principal was played by Harrison Ford. Very exciting day on set for me. And at that time, he was one of the coolest guys on the planet. I mean, he still is. Oh, and for me, I was a huge Star Wars fan. That was the whole impetus for me wanting to be an actor in the first place, wanting to be in films. I saw Star Wars in the theater and I thought, wow, that's amazing. People do that as a job. And I thought, I want to do that. That seems like fun. And Harrison Ford, to me, became like the iconic movie star with roles, characters like Han Solo, and then Indiana Jones. Yeah. And I also saw all of the other films that he was in, like Cisco Kid, and of course American Graffiti, and even, I can't remember it now, but I found the film that he was in where he was an extra. He's like a bellhop or something in the hotel lobby. So as a kid, that was a huge moment for me. And I was so disappointed when it wasn't in the film, because I wanted to tell my friends, I'm on the screen with Han Solo.